Recently I picked up Good Smell Company's Greatest Idol Miku based off Michi M's album of the same name, and while I think it's a great Miku, there are plenty of great Mikus out there, and so I don't think it's going to be the grail or the jewel of anyone's Miku collection. Today's figure, on the other hand, well, we're taking a look at one of the more unique figures out there. I've put her official title on screen, but for the sake of easier pronunciation, I think I'll just call her Ballerina Miku. Because she is so unique, naturally this means that she's also divisive. You either love her or you don't. And I totally get that, because this is a weird looking figure. Upon first impression, I was on the fence. I loved how dynamic and pretty she was, but I had no idea what this figure even was. I mean, what's with that pose, that expression, and I didn't even have a song I could look up. I need context, damn it! Later I was informed that she's supposed to be a ballerina, and all of a sudden it made sense. And that's when I was able to really start appreciating this figure. I actually had the pleasure of being able to see this figure in person at AFA Singapore last year in November. It made me very excited to know that I'd pre-ordered the figure. My fingers were crossed that her final version would turn out to be just as good as her prototype. And I can safely say that, as far as I can tell, she turned out identical to her prototype. So, where do you even start with this figure? Well, before we get to the figure itself, let's talk about the box, which is massive. That makes sense, since the figure is also massive. Either way, the shipping price is not going to be pretty. Overall, the design is classy and minimalistic. Hard to go wrong with black, really. This box gave me the impression that I was going to be receiving a very special figure, and I think that's a really good sign. Let's move on to the figure itself, and one of the most important features of any Miku figure, which is her hair. What can I say other than wow? I'd say it's the most eye-catching aspect of the figure, and that's saying something. As you can see, the sculpt is wild, and I can only imagine what a nightmare it must have been to produce. It's like every time you look, there's a new strand of hair that you hadn't noticed before. There's a trend among Miku figures out there, like in the Greatest Idol figure I mentioned earlier, where the further you go down the hair, the more transparent it becomes. Well, Max Factory have one up that by giving the ends of her hair a rainbow effect. It's a stunningly beautiful detail. Although it's easy to get caught up in her hair, the sculpt of Miku's body should not be overlooked. It's incredible. I love how defined and lean her body is. You can see her ribs and her muscles, particularly in her back. It's a beautiful, raw, natural look, and it's very rare to find among the countless figures out there with idealized bodies. However, there's a bit of give and take with this. You're going to have to suspend a little bit of disbelief when it comes to her proportions. Though I acknowledge the implausibility of them, I'm fairly lenient when it comes to the proportions of figures in general. But in this case, the length of her fingers, toes, and even neck are pushing things a little bit too far even for me. I don't know any ballerinas in real life, but I'm sure your toes and fingers aren't meant to do that. Can they even do that? I'm not sure. But heck, with that hair, it's not like you're going for realism in the first place. I mean, this figure is all about style, and the odd-looking body parts only add to that. The expression of Miku's is a bit more mature than what we're used to. It's certainly lacking in the moe department, going for a more sophisticated and elegant look. It actually reminds me slightly of the expression on her World is Mine figure. Her eyes are thinner, her face looks sharper, and the paint job on her face is to die for. I love that her eyes aren't just a flat green. Thanks to the combination of colours, her gaze is a mesmerising one. As for the most unremarkable aspect of this figure, it's by far the base. It's an interesting scenario. This was the base that they used in the prototype, and I thought for sure that they'd change things or spice things up a bit, but nope, it's just a plain black base. Though there is a platform for her to stand on, which elevates her and makes her seem just a tad bigger than she actually is. In fact, because of this, she fits right in with 1/6 scale figures, despite being 1/7 scale herself. What I find so odd is that every other aspect of this figure has so much effort and detail that's been put into it, and then you have this base which kind of looks lazy. As a result, you'd have to think that they're trying to go for some sort of contrast. Perhaps, like the box, they're trying to go for some sort of minimalism. It actually complements the figure quite well, to be honest, and I'd much rather a plain and boring base than one that takes away from the figure. But still, you can't help but think there's a missed opportunity there. So as I'm sure you've probably figured out from my endless gushing, I absolutely adore this figure. This is without a doubt one of the crowning jewels in my collection, and certainly my favourite Miku thus far. The hair is dynamic and colourful, her sculpt and pose are unique, and her paint job is spot on. She is expensive, but there's no doubt in my mind she is worth every yen. Thanks for watching, have a great day, and happy collecting. Bye bye.